supply chains and so on and so forth. To be super honest with you, at this point in time, I am reminded, and thank you very much for introducing me. The first 16 years I worked for Unilever, then I worked for actually Reckitt Benckiser. Both of them are not pharma companies. It's only the last 3.5 years I've been in pharma. But having said that, blockchain has utilization not just in pharma, but also in, back in the days when I used to buy palm oil for Unilever, and people were talking about sustainable palm oil plantations, and Unilever came under fire with all those green, organizations and so on and so forth. And there were orangutans in our factory in the UK, and so on and so forth. So there was a solution which was drawn out, and I can see blockchain extending to that to be able to say that where are we sourcing our palm oil from at this point in time, give certifications for those palm oils, and we have a track and trace of the whole palm oil as well. Yeah. Coming to the home of medicines, which is where perhaps a lot of people are interested in actually learning about today. I must say that coming from the background of CPG into pharma, I am very honestly a little disappointed specifically for the Indian pharma industry, because if you actually go and buy, let's say, 3,000 rupees worth of injection, you will not even have a simple barcode on that particular injection, or even a drug which is as expensive as, let's say, 3,000 rupees. If you realize that the chemist actually ends up putting up his own barcode to scan it so that the batch and everything is actually done. And on one hand, this is where we are on the Western world, because some actually only about a third of the top line and the volumes come from India, and about 2/3 of the volumes are actually exported. And in the Western world, there are regulations where it is not just needed to be coded, but also to be serialized and aggregated. And that actually gives a complete linkage of the drug, which is actually going to whom and who is consumed, what part of the drug, so on and so forth. For example, a recall of a drug has to happen. It's very simple. Sitting on a computer, I could actually sit here and do a recall, give it to the specific chemists and the specific distributors for that particular specific thing which is being given. Yeah, there are huge implications. I must say that I am actually looking forward to some of these startup companies who are co-panelists with me to actually throw light and actually enlighten the pharma industry in a manner of speaking, to be able to adopt the blockchain stuff for the benefit not just of the patients or the doctors or the ecosystem or the companies or the regulators. Yeah, it will actually benefit every single person. Yeah. And we are talking about, specific to COVID vaccines, and I see Sid here. I'm sure Sid has been doing a lot of great work in terms of putting a lot of vaccines on the blockchain. But it's also important not just about actually putting on the blockchain only to the extent of take the case in point of let's say COVID vaccination, where you want to achieve a herd immunity at the rate of 60-70% people being immunized. You would like to have the data flowing backwards as to if there are a 1 billion population in this country. I know 600 million people have to get vaccinated, but are these individuals separate? Are they same? So the data can actually flow backwards as well to say that, fine, these are not the same people who are taking the jabs again and again, and so on and so forth. So to cut a long story short, there is a lot of scope for blockchain to come and play a role in pharma. And I am actually looking forward to kind of transformations happening in the industry at large, and in Sun Pharma also. I'm trying to drive things in a smaller way, I would say. Thank you.
Great, Sreenivas. Thank you. Two very good points. Of course, the idea of traceability of medicine, taking the 3,000 rupee medicine example. Akash and Ram, I'm going to give that point to you. And I think I like the second part even better, which is about, you need to vaccinate 600 million people. How do they even know where to go or when to go or what to do? So Sid and Samir, get ready. That's going to come to you guys. Akash, why don't we start with you from the Trace? I think I know you guys have Trace RX, and the idea of being able to track medicines in what capacity can it be done to the end user? Please, if you could just kind of tell us something about that. But of course, please introduce yourself for 30 seconds and then go ahead with that.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you. So from a background, we also do consulting with a lot of companies, from startups to Fortune 500 companies across the world. And we have now built over 30 blockchain products in different domains, decentralized finance, supply chain, lending, specifically in traceability, the TraceRx that you're talking about. We covered medical aid that went out to various remote regions, and how the let's say there is an aid that needs to, WHO decided to send an aid to some location, then there is a traceability required. So we covered that in our product. Now I'm going to talk about three specific issues which is causing the larger adoption, and that needs to be addressed. So the first one comes out to be compliance. And it's compliance become very funny, because not funny, I would say that the problem with the compliance is that when it actually hit you, then you change everything. You change the law, you change the compliance, you deal with it. So during COVID, if you look at it, immediately, almost in February, March, Ministry of Health came out with video conferencing solution guideline. A lot of companies and startups came out and they started building on top of it. So immediately the compliance came out, how to do that. And then if you look at the US, HIPAA compliant actually gave enforced discretion to the market that you can actually go ahead and use non-HIPAA compliant softwares and technologies like Skype, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger to interact between patient and doctor, right? So that, just think about it. So the compliance can be dealt with. It's just, if it hits you, then you can manage, you can identify, you can start building a first draft and keep building on top of it. So I think as long as the compliance gets some clarity on few very specific things, for example, how the identity is playing a role in the entire supply chain, patient record, or any application you build on blockchain. So that's one very important item that compliance should address. The second thing will be, how do you do the on-chain storage? What is being stored on the blockchain? What is not stored on the blockchain? What is offline? This is very important question. And the third, I would say, is to get into the auditing mechanism of on-chain as well as off-chain. So then the compliance have some draft ready for larger adoption. So this is the first problem and roadblock, which is the biggest one, to make it a mainstream. The second major issue that we have seen building these platforms is there are deep technical maturity that needs to happen on the blockchain protocols and everything. So every technology you pick, whether it is Stellar, Hedera, Ethereum, there is always fork, there is always another version, there is always another things to be resolved. So what happened is, during this deep technical issues, you may have larger problem, like how do you migrate data from one version of truth to another version of better truth, I would say. So how do you really move that data, and who will how does the compliance play a role in that? How does the auditing happen? How does the handoff happen? So there is very specific technical issues there when you are doing data migration, when you hit that wall. The other things are how do you bring more stakeholders into the picture? So let's say you have built a blockchain where you're keeping vaccination record or medical record. Now, how do you get the provisioning of these stakeholders? How do you make sure they can participate and they are also following through the compliance, auditing, and everything required? So those are also technical problem. How do you technically enable them to join our network? And I think another one is the mechanism for error correction. You do make errors, so you will have one version of a data that is going to the blockchain, and then you may realize, we made an error. How do we deal with that? So I think that's the second major issue to deal with. And the third thing is the security. Now, when we bring up blockchain, there is a lot of assumption that blockchain just is secure and it will deal with security of its own. But the reality is that what is on the chain, that is, of course, a lot of scrutiny is there. Blockchain can handle the security. But when you build a solution, you're never building just an on-chain solution. You're always building a hybrid. There is something on-chain, there is something off-chain. Even the purest form of smart contract you can write and deploy on a public network will require you to write root key somewhere, whether you write it on a piece of paper, whether you save it on a computer, USB, with an exchange, whatever it is, somewhere you will end up writing that the most important credential. Now, that becomes the target for hacking, right? So cybersecurity, how do you deal with that? So there is always that security aspect to it. So I think to summarize, these are three major things: compliance, error correction when technology has maturity, and then how do you deal with the security issues?
Beautiful, Akash. Thank you. So very interesting points. I think especially I like the one about compliance and security. Ramki, I'm going to put this, give it over to you because you guys actually have a couple of solutions like Asli Medicine, as well as I believe you also have a solution called Asli Stamp. Now, the idea that these all have to kind of follow certain compliance standards, as well as I think security is always a topic across any solution, right? It could be blockchain you're talking about, could be IoT, could be AI, could be. How have you at Zoreum Technologies addressed these points that Akash has brought up? Because again, they're very important considerations, especially in the healthcare space. So again, please introduce yourself in 30 seconds and then you can go ahead and give your comments.
Hi, good evening all. Myself, RamKrishna. I'm the co-founder and heading this Zoreum Technologies here in India. We develop decentralized applications specialized in blockchain. I myself is a blockchain architect. I lead a team of blockchain architects and I look into the business aspect of it. We are working in two segments. One is pharma and another is in logistics, that is for apparels. So initially we have built a POC with the app Asli Medicine, wherein we bring internal provenance and even external provenance. And this application is for track and trace. And we built and we have done a pilot with a company, and we are expecting a production grade thing in a short. The discussion is on. Here the challenge what we see is from a regulator end, and even we are looking forward for a mutual collaboration with government also as well. So that is a key challenge is that the adoption, we build a complete end-to-end solution, but the market is not really ready for end-to-end solution. That is the thing which we have seen. So the thing which we are looking out of it is that we are working out, revise this thing only for internal provision establishment. That's how the thing is there, because the stakeholders at the moment for end-to-end, they are not yet ready. I don't know why they are waiting from various end. One is that a regulator end they are looking at. So that is in brief about the thing, what my experience I'm sharing with you guys.
Sure. Okay, great. Ramki, thank you. Sid, my next question actually is to you, and I'm also kind of putting a question to you, which is coming from the audience. The question is actually about ethics, and as I think Sreenivas endorsed you from a vaccine distribution. The question is focusing on ethics, right? It's all about like, yeah, you are basically the solution provider. How are you managing the ethics of privacy, storing personal data, processing and using the sensitive data? And the solution that you guys have actually built up, how does that actually work in this particular environment? And how can I be comfortable that, you know what, what's going to you is going to be not misused at StaTwig? So over to you, please, Sid. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Jitan. So we started 4 years ago. Our initial focus was on the vaccine supply chain from the very early days. We picked that supply chain because of our early pilots back in 2017. This was very early days of blockchain technology, and we deployed a solution and got good recognition. And
sorry to cut you, Sid. I do apologize, but I think your voice is not coming through very clearly. So if we request you to speak a little louder, please.
Better now?
A little better.
Okay, let me.
Do you want to fly without the headset?
Okay, is this better?
It's
Much
super.
better.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Sorry. So we started 4 years ago, very early days of blockchain, and we focused on a niche because we saw some of these challenges around adoption and many other aspects that other startups have pointed out, even in those early days. Because blockchain depends on network effect. So you need to have a large portion of your supply chain using your solution to provide any benefits back to the users who are using it. So luckily for us, we focused on vaccines for two reasons. When I moved back to India, I noticed that Hyderabad is a big hub for vaccine manufacturing. So nearly 30% of global vaccines by volume are manufactured out of few companies here. So that was a market very nearby. So that was one choice. And luckily we got on board UNICEF, which is the largest distributor of vaccines globally. So UNICEF buys and distributes nearly 4 billion doses of vaccine each year. Which is and it's a largest distributor, as I said, worldwide. And soon after that, one thing triggered another thing, and we got support from Gavi, which is the biggest donor of vaccines worldwide. So they have $7 to $8 billion fund only dedicated for vaccine procurement and distribution. So we kind of got this with the vaccine space, since we focused on that. We kind of got validation, support, fund in terms of funding, and also an opportunity to deploy our solution in a very large scale supply chains. So where we can build the product based on the needs that we are seeing from the field, because blockchain solutions are very complex. I mean, supply chains are overall very complex. You can't basically build a solution and expect it to fit perfectly to other supply chains. So in this case, we focused on even in this vaccine supply chain, this commercial and public distribution. So we, with the UNICEF and Gavi and other governments, we focused on public distribution systems. So this is where a government is the procurer of vaccine, and they go through multi-tier distribution of these vaccines in each country. So in a way, by doing so, what we have designed when we were designing and developing this solution, we ensured a lot of these privacy, security, and a lot of other principles into our solution. And it has not been easy. So there's so we are dealing with multiple very large scale enterprises and also organizations which span across multiple countries. So they have their existing security systems that you have to integrate with. They have their own privacy systems. Then we had to spend a lot of effort on developing very good access control mechanisms to ensure that although there's different stakeholders involved, it's not just, when I say stakeholders, it's not just like, hey, we have one vaccine company, then one UNICEF. Within UNICEF, there's hundreds of country officers, thousands of implementation partners, and some tens and thousands of users within those organizations. Now, how do you build your system to cater to the needs at different levels? Who has access to what, and how does the technology support that? So these were possible because we focused on a niche. I don't think it's easily replicatable across the board that easily. So blockchain doesn't come with a lot of inherent privacy protection mechanisms. I think there's a lot of work going on in some of the open source projects in that area, but you have to focus on building those also in the application layer and all other layers in the technology stack, not just at the blockchain layer. So that's been our experience, and I think we have been simply lucky also to see some very large scale deployments, which has been a big learning from us, so where we could get real requirements back from the clients and use those requirements to develop the product in a way that solves some of these issues.
Yeah, that's really an encouraging story. I think considering working with such major vaccine distribution organizations, I think that's fantastic, because I think the idea that pharma and blockchain can work has been pretty much one of the oldest use cases. The fact that you guys are doing so much, that's super impressive. Okay, Samir, over to you. You get the toughest one because you're the IBM. So, Samir, I think I actually read recently about the whole IBM starting out with the digital health pass in the New York Stadium. It's in line with the question that I asked actually Sid too, right? Things about handling privacy, things about how you're going to make, what exactly is the whole health pass like? Is it like a one-stop solution? Is it for a one organization? How does it cross borders? Because is it, do I need a separate pass for like India, a separate pass for Singapore, a separate pass for a different country? How many apps am I going to get download? All those 15 dozen questions, right? Who has my data? If I go to Dubai, is India going to send my data over there? Like when you talk about an organization like IBM, I am guessing you have figured out more of a global problem or a global solution. Can you kind of provide insight on that, or like what are you guys thinking about? Can't hear you, Samir.
Yeah. So blockchain and Pharma have been working together for multiple problems, right through the cold supply pharma chains. We also stood up a responsible service network when the pandemic was at its peak, really, to quickly provide a trusted ecosystem for various pharma companies and the suppliers and the buyers on the other side to quickly make available sanitizers, masks, and all of those essentials to fight out the pandemic at that point of time. Like Sid mentioned, I think the next step where blockchain really came in was the vaccine administration and the accountability around that, right from budgeting to sourcing, providing transparency for the governments as well as the suppliers, and then the actual administration rollout of the vaccines. I think what comes now is really a key moment, Jitan. It's really about people getting vaccinated and getting ready to re-engage with with all the activities that we all been looking forward to. Right now, this is where some of the challenges come in. Right now, how does one provide a trusted credential that I'm vaccinated or I'm not at risk of infecting others? That's me as an individual. On the other side, we have issuers who are really pharmaceutical laboratories, vaccination authorities who provide the credentials. And on the other side are workplaces, companies, businesses, hotels, event stadiums, all the event management companies who want to verify your credentials. Now, I as an individual would like to have a complete control over sharing my credentials without compromising any privacy. I may be okay with sharing only my, say, the vaccination status with my workplace verification, but I may be more than happy to share, full details of my vaccination with, say, my doctor, for example, if I have a comorbidity, right? Now, these varying levels of information sharing is a need which is directly related to data privacy. On the other side is the question around the verifiers who want to have a trusted environment. Sorry, have a trusted environment where all this can be verified. Now, uh, where blockchain really comes in is setting up that ecosystem where the issuers and the verifiers are on the same network. But I, as an individual, control when do I get the credentials and who do I share it with. And blockchain provides a trusted mechanism of providing, if you want a zero proof knowledge environment where you don't share any personal data with the verifier. He only gets to know whether I have a valid credentials to do or not. On the other side, the businesses themselves would have different requirements. If I have a negative COVID test, and that might be good for some set of employers to provide access to their workplaces, but for other environments or high security environments, there could be other rules that the verifiers would really like to put in. There could be additional rules, additional checks that they want to get into place before providing a health pass and an entry to me. So the verifiers also want to have a control of how they actually use those credentials, right? So all the three parties, it's me as an individual, the issuers, as well as the verifiers, all of them are looking to trust, in this process. Now, something like a health pass, where you have all the three parties registered, but each party getting to know only the action that is consented to and only the data that I as an individual have provided explicit consent to be able to get that health pass, and the verifiers on the other side being able to configure rules based on their business need and policies and taking decisions on what they really want is what the health pass really provides. It provides the trusted environment to provide an immutable ledger of all the interactions and the verifications. So on the verifier side, you can really plan out your return to workplace policies based on data which is verified. I, as an individual, can control who gets to see my credentials, and the issuers are able to verify my share the credentials with the individuals and not worry about being loaded with verification of those credentials at every point, right? So from a now, you could also have a situation where some of the verifiers and the issuers may have an existing relationships, which means they are already trusted. So you could have these people onto the network, and you could have a conduit to really cut down some of those verification timelines, and you could really streamline that process. And each of these verifiers can then have various value-added services on top of not just the entrance eligibility, but also to emerge stronger out of the current pandemic. So a blockchain solution where all the three set of parties together could come in, and to the point that Mr. Rao mentioned earlier about the data getting back to the pharma companies, that's also possible, right? So some of those, so this is really a transformative moment. It's not just about return to workplace training. It's about enabling a lot of these other use cases around vaccination data that were not possible earlier. So you could have a data subject sharing data with a pharma company for pharmacovigilance and other monitoring that they may be interested in.
Very nice. In fact, I think Samir, you kind of got into my second, my guess, looking most like the last question, but very interesting, right? Mr. Rao, you actually get us the medicines. We make sure Akash and Ramki gets it and trace the medicine, make sure I get the right medicine. Sid keeps me honest and makes sure I get vaccinated, and Samir helps to kind of travel. Okay, that's a solution that I feel good about myself in the right place. My question is, what happens next? So, like, these solutions, are they for a moment in time? What's the evolution of these? Because you're right, I think Samir brought up, right? The data can go back to the pharma companies. There can be a lot of AI involved. There can be like data analytics involved. How do we envision this whole pharma ecosystem to kind of evolve across the board to benefit me as the end citizen, to benefit yourselves as technology players, as well as pharmaceutical companies? And guys, this is an open question. I'm going to let anybody take the question to start answering the question. But again, what is the evolution of this overall solution beyond the vaccination, beyond the initial supply chain visibility? Because once you have it, you have it. What do we know next? So open question to anyone.
I can take a wish. Yeah, so we've been seeing adoption even before pandemic actually. So this so blockchain has been seeing very steady adoption. It's not been very quick because of the network effect that it needs. It requires multi-stakeholders to participate in a network. But once you have that on your platform, adoption becomes a little more easier. So there's different value proposition for different stakeholders in the supply chain. For pharmaceutical companies, there's definitely visibility. Today, their visibility ends after first change of custody of their product. But if they get visibility into their extended supply chain, where the products are heading in terms of locations, geographies, demographics, and how are they getting distributed, how long are they sitting in the warehouses, when are they moving from point 1 to point B to point C. So that information is useful from a lot of insight to generate actionable insights that would ensure both quality and safety of their product. Now, distributors and other, if I talk about large organizations like Gavi and UNICEF, for them, I mean, they already paid for the product. So if they if they want to ensure the quality and safety while it's in their supply chain, I mean, that's a real benefit that they get out of it. So it really has the capabilities to solve different buckets of value to different stakeholders. So that it can be a solution which can So the sharing of data becomes, you see immediate value in doing so. So there's a value for investment, and everything is clear in the customer's mind when it comes to the solution like that. Where so going back, I think what COVID-19 has done is accelerated some of this adoption. The industry, like any other big large industries, pharma and other large industries are slow-moving industries. So new technologies, adopting new technologies would have taken a long time. But with COVID-19, we're seeing some a lot of acceleration in adoption. So a lot of decisions are being made very quickly in the industry. So what would have been a 18 months or 20 months cycle to get a product in is getting shortened to somewhere around 2 to 3 months.
Great, Sid. Thank you. Mr. Sreenivas, any closing comments from yourself?
No, I think Sid has covered it, to be honest. The only thing which I would say is that, as technology keeps evolving, and as you rightly put across also, Jitan, that the data analytics and the numbers and the whole nine yards which goes behind it, and therefore we are talking about, let's say, from a medical perspective, what can we do in terms of predicting the outbreak of a pandemic, or predicting for at an individual level, depending on the kind of medicines which the person has taken, what are the kinds of things which the person needs to take. So that could be the next level of evolution, in my opinion. Yeah, of course it is a little in the air in terms of thinking, but I mean,
That's where you start, yeah.
yeah.
Great. Akash, thank you, Srinivasa. Akash, from yourself, any closing remarks?
I mean, just want to add to that, like I mentioned, there is this gap to be filled. So the foundation is built with this, all the effort when COVID happened. There is records, there is, passes on blockchain, there is, some level of scrutiny, auditing, compliance, something is coming up. Now there is a maturity level that will show up on every aspect. So from a technology point of view, which blockchain to use, which one to adopt, if you're using it at a national level, how do you pick one versus other? So there are multiple questions that needs to be addressed. And the second thing is, I think, like I said, the security aspect of it. Now there needs to be a maturity around, okay, now there is this data available, and there are application ideas which, like we mentioned here in the forum, to look at the analytics, look at the use cases of person. But before we jump to that, how do you really make sure the compliance, the identity, and everything else is in place? So there is a lot of, the entire ecosystem has to play a role at their end. So whether it's government, whether it is technology, whether it is startups and new products, they are getting together, will make a balance out of the next version of where we are right now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Akash. Ramki, closing remarks from yourself? We can't hear you. I was talking on mute, Ramki.
Sorry, yeah. So in the entire ecosystem, technology solution, we can bring out any type of technology, any upgradation of technology. For the ecosystem, here I want a regulator to play a proactive role. That is the only thing which we are looking out. Probably from this forum, I urge if any reaches the government authorities, because the decision making is very slow when compared to other developed countries. That is the only constant which has.
I guess you gave IAMAI the next white paper topic. Thank you, Ramki. Samir, closing remarks. You got 30 seconds, please. Go ahead.
Sure. So, blockchain, we always been after the ecosystem and the network effect. I think COVID-19 has made sure that all the ecosystems are, there are multiple ecosystems working together to solve problems. And that throws up opportunities for, so many use cases with pharma. And the pharma has been connected to the patients through the industry and the practitioners really. But now there is a back to front relationship that has been established, right? And that's going to be, that's going to be a fundamental change in relationship. All the mixing of ecosystems and participants, that's not going to go away even after we emerge from the COVID. Yeah.
Appreciate it. So, well, again, thank you, everyone, guys. A lot of good discussions. I think the most important point, at least for me coming on, there are solutions actually being used across the board, across by big organizations. And it's not just B2B, it's actually coming to you as an individual, as an end citizen. And I think across the dimension of pharmaceutical companies, technology firms, as well as government, as well as private organizations are closely working on it. I actually do feel the topic of this session is quite appropriate, Pharma to a healthier world. And again, with tech, I think that's where we actually are heading. So again, thank you again for your comments. And IAMAI, thank you for organizing the session. Have a good one.
Thank you, speakers.
Thank you.
We'd like to wait for our delegates can wait for the last session, and we thank our knowledge partner EY and platinum partner R3 for supporting us. And thank you, speakers, for your time. It was a great, wonderful session, and we can hope to see each other in physical events soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.